Hello again, maths fans. Another brilliant day at the HLF 2021 is almost at a close, and over the next 10 minutes, we will be looking back at some of the highlights and also what lies ahead for this evening. Now, just like yesterday, I thought we'd start with some photos that have been taken throughout the day. And we're going to have to kick it off by basically all having a laugh and me attempting to do yoga once again. So this brilliant image of both myself and the yoga instructor, Andrea, doing some tree poses this morning in the green screen studio. I'll be honest, I've been practicing this all day because I feel like I could do better. So I'm going to give it one other quick go for you all over here to see if I have improved my technique. So I'm going to go higher with my foot. I'm going to have straighter arms. So Andrea, I hope you're watching, and I hope you're impressed with my new improved yoga tree pose for you. Thank you for being such a good sport. We've also, of course, had the hot topic discussion that took place today, and one of my guests from the daily news show, Amrish Baijo, came out with this quite fantastic quote, which I think does bear repeating, saying that we need each other to deal with humanitarian health emergencies, so let's work interdisciplinarily. Very, very wise words. And of course, he wasn't the only one present on the panel. We also have a couple of other guests, including Sheetal Silal, who also happens to be with me here in the studio, which is extremely exciting. So hello again,
Hi.
Sheetal. Thank you very much for joining us. In case you missed the session earlier or don't quite remember, Sheetal is the director of the Modeling and Simulation Hub in Africa. So I just thought, now that the session has taken place and you've had a little bit of time to process your thoughts, what did you feel were the key takeaways from your perspective? Could you sort of sum up the discussion for us?
Sure. Let's start off with coming directly off the quote by Dr. Amrish Baijo, this idea of interdisciplinarity, that as much as we are mathematicians and computer scientists doing mathematical disease modeling on a computer, in fact, mathematical modeling is not our domain. It is the domain of all the sciences, of the doctors and the epidemiologists, the virologists, the economists. Everyone really comes together to develop this disease model. So that's takeaway number one, that if you want to get into disease modeling, you've got to learn to work with other groups and other people with different expertise. And number two is that working in this space, in order to develop effective models that can be implemented, we need to be open to engaging and having a very strong communication aspect with respect to not just the public, but also the stakeholders with whom we are engaging, the different levels of government and non-profit organizations all working together for health. So they are all consumers of your models, and so you need to be able to communicate effectively. Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that second point, because one of my takeaways, I'll be honest, I didn't see the whole thing. I had a very busy day preparing for this, but I did catch a few bits and pieces. And I really liked when you were discussing this idea of putting your model or your numbers into the context of like the culture or the area of the world. And like actually, as you're saying, it's not just you as a model or a mathematician saying this, you have to work with everybody else.
Yes, because otherwise your models, which are then used to develop policy and interventions, when it's time for those interventions to get implemented, then the public, the population who need them, they're not acceptable to the public. So you've got to really start off at the population level and then design scenarios and make recommendations that will actually have the potential to be implemented. Otherwise, you've lost before you begin.
And in your role as director at MASHA, do you sort of, are you mainly focused on that modeling aspect, or do you kind of, as director, kind of try to bring together all of the teams to work and actually put it into policy?
So in fact, even before I was director, as just a simple modeler, I have to do that because you can't run a modeling project from start to finish without bringing everyone in. So yeah, all modelers have to do that. As a director, I guess, with more experience, I'm able to perhaps help others do it, but it's got to be a part of every project.
Okay. Brilliant. And of course, following the discussion, there were the fishbowl sessions where you were in smaller groups with some of the young researchers. Now, as long as you're allowed to share this with us, because there's slightly more private sessions, I'm quite interested to see if there were any points made or any questions that the young researchers had that sort of caught your attention or you found particularly interesting. Sort of, in what ways did you think they were maybe inspired or intrigued by that discussion?
Sure. I think the one question that did stand out for me today in the fishbowl session was a question on if we wish to take this context and social behavior and culture into account in our models, accessing that data can be problematic because it is sensitive data. And I think that what was wonderful in our discussion today was being able to think about ways in which that could happen. That are there ways of approaching and obtaining this data from population groups without actually breaching any ethical codes or sensitivity analyses? And we had quite a robust discussion about that. So I did enjoy that particular aspect of the fishbowl.
Fantastic. Right. Well, I think we've probably taken up enough of your time today, sort of doing the discussion and then the fishbowl, and then very kindly agreed to come and have a chat with me again. So thank you so much for all your time and being a great sport, I think, in joining in all aspects.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Thank you, Sheetal.
Goodness.
Right. Now, turning to this evening's events, we have again, I mean, I've been saying this a lot, but I think this is a brilliant offering, especially given my interest and focus on science communication. And this is going to be a pitch your science news story sort of editor workshop. And the idea is you're going to actually hear from actual editors of various publications. I will give you the list in just a moment if you haven't read it already. But you're going to actually be able to interact with those editors and learn what they look for in a pitch. And also, hopefully by the end of the session, maybe even be able to sort of offer your own pitches to them and try that out. And not only will you potentially be offering your own pitches, but one of the laureates, which is going to be Martin Hellman, will actually be offering his own pitch up for, let's say, feedback and constructive criticism from the editors. So I think that will certainly be, at the very least, entertaining. And thank you to Martin for being such a good sport as well, because I'd be terrified to do that sort of live in front of various editors. So the editors present, there's a good, absolute all-star range of people. We've got Bill Andrews, who's from Quanta Magazine, which looks at maths, computer science, physics, biology. Tom Edgar from Maths Horizons, kind of based around maths. John Mecklin from the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists, which here says disruptive technology, which sounds quite interesting, climate change, nuclear risk, biosecurity, and the COVID-19 pandemic. And also Amy Nordrum, who is from MIT Technology Review, which focuses on technology. So a good range of different editors there. So hopefully something for everyone's interests and tastes. Now, to finish today, we are going to, of course, look at the social media posts. So thank you again, everyone, for joining in and using hashtag HLF21. Do keep doing this throughout the week. I'll obviously remind you again on the Daily News Show tomorrow. So I picked out my 4 favorite images that I found on Twitter. So in the top left, we've got another bag photo, but I particularly enjoyed, this one came in from Neil Dyson, and I particularly enjoyed that even though everyone else was doing it yesterday, Neil was like, I'm so excited about this, I'm going to post it on day 2 as well. So thank you, Neil. Then we've got this image in the bottom left, which captures Jeff Ullman, and this was from Akhil Arora, who sort of caught this screenshot as Jeff was discussing the advice he received from another laureate, John Hopcroft, saying that if you want to be a famous person, you have to write a book, which is, I think, and I'm going to say interesting advice. I'm not sure I technically agree with that, but thank you very much, Akhil, for sharing that. Then we've got, in the top right, we've got another screenshot from the discussion with Alfred Aho, and this was from Thomas Zurek, who was trying to spot and figure out the books that were actually behind Alfred on the bookshelf. And he claims to have spotted the Dragon Book and also the Art of Computer Programming. And finally, we have Enrico Catalano, who's here posing in his T-shirt with what appears to be an Italian book on prime numbers. So thank you, Enrico, for sending that one in. And again, thank you to you all for tuning in. Thanks for joining in on social media, and I will see you all tomorrow for the 3rd Daily News Show. Have a good evening.